They're simple tasks. They can make such an impact on your garden, and they're going to take up no time. And if you make the compost yourself, they'll cost you next to nothing as well. Definitely autumnal out there today. Got a hoodie on. Must be chilly. So we're here to talk about, what are we here to talk about today? Garden care, also, obviously. Autumn garden care, sorry. Not just garden care. So hello and welcome to this week's Natural Gardening Live with me, Josie Rainbird, your natural gardening coach. So today we're talking about autumn garden care. So more specifically, the easy, free and effortless ways that you can promote the health of your garden as we head through autumn, winter and into the most demanding time of the year for your plants. I have a very excited hound outside the door. I can hear her playing with her toy, so if you can hear that, I apologise. At least she's happy. Excellent. So, let me know in the comments. Let me know, how do you prep your garden for autumn? Or even for winter? Or even for spring, for that matter. How do you prep your garden for autumn? As we are, I think we're a matter of days, away from actually officially being in autumn. The weather hasn't really been told this because it's acting like it's in autumn already, or even in winter. So the gardens are going to start getting that hint of autumnalness if they haven't already where you are. So it's really good. We're getting that good shift on. So let me know in the comments, as I say, let me know in the comments how you prepare your garden for autumn to give it the best sort of hit, if you like, for spring. So I'm going to be talking a bit more about this in a minute, but let me know how you do it for you. How you do you. The most important things that you can think about when preparing your garden for a good, strong spring, try saying that 10 times fast, good, strong spring, is soil care, soil nutrients, kind of the same, nutrients and soil, pest and disease prevention. They're kind of the two main things that you want to get under control and give them a good old boost, if you like, as we're coming into spring. But yeah, soil care, the nutrients held in the soil, the pest and disease management in your garden as well, prevention in your garden. So these are the two things I'm going to be concentrating on today. They're really good ways of creating a sustainable and natural garden as well, and so boosting the ecosystem and the self-sustainability, is that the word? The ecosystem in the garden, keep it all going nicely without needing you so much. So that's what we're talking about in this week's episode. Hopefully you enjoy it. If you learn anything, if you like the episode, if you like this, but yeah, comment anything you learn, anything you pick up that you like the idea of in here, on the comment under the video, absolutely fine. Perfect. So yeah, so as I say, they're the two most important things to really worry about as we're coming through autumn into spring. Forgetting about winter a little bit, autumn into spring, and the rest of what you need to manage, you can really manage as you go. It's kind of like you do it as you see it kind of thing. But with these two aspects under control and have a really good kickstart in the as we're going into autumn, the rest of it is easier to manage, much easier to manage, I'd say. Soil being the foundation of your garden, which I know I have said before, so apologies if I sound like a stuck record, but it is very important. The soil being the foundation of your garden, good soil comes with a productive garden, healthy and productive garden. It's vital to understand the importance of soil care when it comes to preparing your garden for spring. Now, you're probably sick to death of me saying this, but again, I have got the playlist for my garden care, can't count the brain, soil care playlist. It's in the guide section above, or I will link it as well if you want. I'll link it in the description and comments. Give me things the right way around. Description and comments, so you can check that out. But that's got all sorts of goodies about how to keep your soil healthy, because it is really important, and it will take an awful lot of time off your hands, or work off your hands even. I've had one of those days today that I feel like my brain has dribbled out of my ears. Just saying. So bear with me if my words get muddled up. I'm doing my best, yes. By starting I told you. By starting to prepare your soil now, whilst the garden is still growing, it will help to prepare your plants for winter, which is amazing. It will prepare the ecosystem in your soil for the drop in temperature, to help everything recover faster from the effects of the cold. And as the weather starts to warm up and the soil starts to warm up and it comes into spring, it's going to have a lot less work for it to get to the stage that you want it in the spring. It's not going to recover, and it's not going to be suffering from any damage or sort of pest issues or anything like that early on, because you've given it that boost early on. It's going to go into winter healthier and come out of winter healthier, which is what we want. So start to prepare your soil now. This will give you the advantage, if you like, on your garden. So jobs like mulching and conditioning your soil, fairly simple tasks, quite easy to do, not very strenuous really if you think about it. So mulching and conditioning your soil is fairly simple and can impact your garden easily tenfold, can really make a difference between a healthy or a suffering garden in the spring. So let's have a look. What am I talking about? So here are a few jobs. I've only got a few, not many. A few jobs that you can do now to help support your garden as we head into autumn. That will not only support your garden now, but will also have a knock-on effect as you go into spring. So, what you want to do really. The aim of this is to the rundown, the time your plants in your garden are going to sleep, which is from now really. As the weather starts to get colder, the soil temperature starts to drop, your plants go into dormancy. You're trying to take advantage of this short period of time, sort of like the early autumn period when the soil's still at the right temperature, that the plants are still growing and still utilising the nutrients and things in the soil, to give them the best, to make them healthy as you possibly can now. Not so much to feed them, like to get them growing and to boost them or anything, but to support them, maintain them, keep them healthy, to reduce any challenges on them. So when they go into winter, they go into dormancy, they go to sleep effectively, they go to sleep in the best possible condition. And then when they go through winter, they're going to have more resilience. They're going to grow still through winter, but it's going to be either a very slow process to not obviously non-existent, but really slow. So they're going to still be ticking over. They're going to still need the odd nutrient, the sort of goodness out of the soil. So they're going to still need things to take them over. They're going to be using up resources as you go, and by the time they get to the end of winter, you don't want them to be in a state that they're going to be in starvation, if you like, and they're going to be desperate for more nutrients in the spring when the rapid growth starts. So you want to get them set up in the best condition you can as they go into winter. You don't have to worry about them being in starvation in spring then, and they can just keep on going, which is the aim. So that's what we're aiming to do with these jobs. So, as I mentioned, mulching and top dressing your soil is a really good way of conditioning and putting life back into your soil, providing your plants with all the necessary nutrients that they need for this time of year to support the ecosystem in the soil and to keep your plants ticking over through the winter. So this is what they need to kind of, as a slow release, as a, the word's gone straight out of my head. I had it, it's gone, completely gone. But you know what I'm saying? It's a slow release. It'll just keep them taking over. It's like a ration. That's the word. It's a ration. God, I'm honestly, I don't know how I'm still going. It's nuts. Yeah, it's like a ration for them. So it keeps them going through the winter. And then when they come into spring, the nutrients are still there to support them. And when they start that rapid growth, they don't suffer and go into like a shock because they haven't got anything to draw on. So if you mulch them with, if you use homemade compost, that you would have cleared your compost bins out, hopefully, around about now, or you will be coming up to doing it. Use homemade compost, the stuff you made yourself, or you can buy compost as well, absolutely fine, not a problem. Well-rotted manure, if you know anybody with animals, if they've got a manure heap, anything like that, that is perfect. It will rot down over winter. It wants to be well rotted because if it's fresh, it will burn the roots of the plants, it will burn the plants, the stems. It's not going to do as much good as you think. If it's well rotted, the acidity in the manure depletes rapidly, and it's much better for your plants, much better for the soil, much better for everything really. So well rotted ideally, or compost, homemade compost of any kind, absolutely fine. So mulching, top dressing, you could dig it in as well if you wanted to, but it's better to leave it on the surface. Let it rot down as you go through the sort of the winter, the colder months. Get the frost to it, breaks it down. It will then condition the soil as well as release the nutrients, support the ecosystem in the soil as well, and then aerate the soil, help it to hold moisture as you come into spring. There's a whole story behind that one, which again is in my my playlist that I've done. So there's all sorts in there. So you can look for that in the comment in the in the description. So mulching and top dressing. So I said in the group the other day about, do you leave your plants, your bedding plants, like annuals, do you dig them up after they've finished flowering, if they've gone over, or do you dig them? Do you leave them and then they just die off and that's it? You don't do anything with them after you've planted them. Just let them do their thing, die off, leave them. Now there is a pro and con to both ways really, but I tend to leave them in the ground for two reasons. Sometimes they come back as well. Now annuals don't always play the annual game, they don't always die off completely. Sometimes they do come back year after year, like a perennial will, which is quite good. That's generally speaking, is because their seeds, they drop their seeds around where they are. So if you leave them in the ground, you don't have to then plant more plants. It's like it's an investment, so to speak. They're there and they're going to keep producing more plants each year. So if you leave them there. And the other thing, the reason I leave them in the ground is because the roots that these plants produce, even when they die off, the structure of the roots will actually support the insects living in the soil. They will feed on it, they will make homes in it, and they will use this to improve the condition of the soil. They'll break it up and they'll move it around, and it will then, all these little tiny root balls, like on a pansy, if you can imagine like a pansy or a, words fail me, pansy is the first thing that came to my mind for an annual, God knows why, but think of a pansy like a plug, or like a garden ready plug, so bigger, squarer plug. The block of roots that come with them as they grow in their little trays, that structure will break down. That structure will go towards, as I say, feeding the ecosystem and conditioning the soil. On top will be where the seeds sit, so the plants will just keep coming back, which would be lovely, and which generally happens in our garden. And I leave the pansies and the violas and stuff dotted around. But the root system, I leave the plug in the ground. I don't bother digging them up, because that root system will go a long way to supporting the soil. Even if it's only a little area, that little area can go a long way. So yes, it is a good idea to leave your bedding plants in the ground, and it won't do any harm if you dig them up, but it might add more benefit to your garden, more food, more support, more nutrients for your plants, for your garden overall, and for the ecosystem if you leave them in. And it's less work for you. Let me know if you leave your bedding plants in the ground or if you dig them up. And if you're still going to dig them up if you do, after you've heard this. So my next one was sowing green manure. Now, green manure is, I've done this in the membership before now, all about green manure and sowing it in your vegetable patch. Now, I have known people to sow this in beddings, in like a normal flower bed, if you like, as well, between plants. Now, it can look a little bit messy, but it can also provide an awful lot of good nutrients for your plants, ready for the spring. So the idea of green manure, if you're unfamiliar with the idea, is there are a variety of you get a packet of seeds. You can get a packet of seeds from the garden centre, from online, wherever you get your seeds from, with green manure. You get different sort of mixes. You can get straights like clover, red clover. You can get pea straights. You can get ryegrasses, things like that. You can get straights, or you can get mixes. The mixes are generally good to go for, and they do a variety of different mixes as well, depending on where you're sowing them, what you want to get out of them, and how you want it to support your garden. So, variety of different mixes. They've always been used, so to speak, for, I say always, generally speaking, they've been used for your vegetable patch. You sow at the end of the season as your plants are going over and your vegetables aren't growing so much, you've got big bare spaces in your garden, in your vegetable patch. They will sow the green manure seeds, and then as sort of now, when the weather's still warm enough for the seeds to germinate, the soil's still warm enough, you will leave them to grow as they go through winter, and then early spring, before you need to then plant your vegetables, the weather's still a little bit cold, you will then dig the plants in. You'll let them die over and then dig them in. Roots and all, dig the plants into the soil. As these plants die off in the soil, they sort of rot away, they'll condition the soil. Now, a lot of the green manure are nitrogen fixers. So like I did a post down the dynamic accumulators. So peas, for instance, I've done an accumulator, they are a nitrogen fixer. Anything in the pea and bean family, legumes. So red clover, standard like field peas, things like that. They are very effective at fixing nitrogen in the soil. So they are, generally speaking, a good percentage of a green manure seed packet will be nitrogen fixers, will be of the legume family, because they're very effective at that. And for vegetable patch, nitrogen is fairly important, really. So green manure is an incredibly effective way of naturally conditioning your soil. Live green growing plants that will actually fix nutrients in the soil, support the ecosystem in the soil, condition the soil, break up any like clumps, anything. They break the soil up nicely, aerate it, and give it a really good, lack of a better word, condition, ready for when you want to sow your vegetable seeds and your plants and stuff in the spring. Now, if you use these in your flower beds as well, use maybe a lower growing mix rather than a vegetable patch mix. It doesn't matter if they like grow really high or tall. Maybe a lower growing mix, it doesn't overshadow any of your plants or anything like that, or interfere with anything you've got growing. That's a really good way as well. You can leave them to die off. You don't have to worry about digging them in so much, but you can just let them grow, die off, and then release the nutrients into the soil, and then they'll support your plants in the spring. So green manure is a really effective resource, and it's natural, completely natural. Nature has designed it to do this job, and it's been used for probably many hundreds and thousands of years throughout farming, agriculture, and homesteading, I'd imagine, as well. So it's a very effective resource. As I say, look out for the guide. I will have a bit more information in there, but I've just got to finish updating it as well. So later on in the week, look out for that one. That was green manure. Where did I get to? So 1, 2, 3. Okay, and my last one, which is a very important part, which is the second of the 2 things that you should be looking after coming into autumn winter, is pest control. So in this frame, I'm looking at doing, which is the most effortless way of building up your pest control resources, is creating insect homes and nesting areas in your garden. So we spoke the other day about leaves on your grass, gathering leaves, and how raking them can actually destroy ecosystems for your garden. Now, this is true, but there are, again, 2 sides to this coin. So by creating piles of leaves so much, when the leaves fall, trying to, if you can, rake them as soon as you can, or move them as soon as you can into a pile somewhere in your garden, this will give a larger area for things to live, insects to live, small mammals to live, things like that to live, and support your garden as they come into spring. So you're making a home for something that's then going to use your garden as its larder, I suppose, as its food source. So by supporting them now, when they need your help, as we're coming through autumn into winter, and it's getting colder, they're looking for food, they're looking for shelter, they're looking for nesting materials, that sort of thing. You're providing that home for them. As I say, making piles of leaves, bundles of sticks in the corner of your garden, piles of stones, anything like that to help support anything from a tiny little beetle right up to like birds, small mammals, anything like that. It goes a long way to keeping them in their good books, if you like, and then they'll support your garden as they go. So creating homes, nesting areas, things like that for wildlife, insects and wildlife, they will go a long way towards promoting the pest control in your garden as we come into spring. Now, we all know as the weather starts to warm up, the pests come out of the woodwork, and you really do want to have this resource in hand by the springtime, really, by the time the weather warms up. Usually about Easter time, you start to see it. You start to see like the aphids come out, or little issues, scale, things like that. When the weather starts to just get that little bit of nice sunshine, and then you start to notice it. So if you've got these, the insects that they're natural predators for these insects in the garden already from the autumn, then they will keep them under control nicely for you, and you won't really notice an issue. Those were the 4 things that I could suggest, if you like, will really help you to support your garden as we go through autumn, as we come into autumn, as we go through winter, and give your garden a really good kick and boost, ready for spring, to really get going as well. They're nearly effortless, these. I think the most effort you've got in here is mulching with compost or mulching with manure, whichever. That is the most effortful, I'm going to go with that, effortful task that I've actually got on this list here, because that takes you having to empty a compost bin or empty bags of compost onto your garden and move it around. But they're simple tasks. They can make such an impact on your garden, and they're going to take up no time. And if you make the compost yourself, they'll cost you next to nothing as well. So it's easy. But hopefully you've taken something away. This can help you to support your garden heading into spring. If you have any questions, please feel free to comment below. Good. Thank you very much for joining me today. So yes, on that note, I will see you all later, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Don't get too wet because it is grim outside, and I'm going to now go and try and take the dogs for a walk in the rain. Joy. See you later. Bye.